Greetings and salutations and welcome to this review for the very, very niche Blood Summer by Louise Cooper. Look at that cover. Isn't it fantastic? Isn't it promising pulpy, horror-y goodness from the 70s? And it delivers on all these things. So this New English Library with that amazing cover, which is sadly not credited to the deserving artist, is the cover for Blood Summer by Louise Cooper. It's a bit hard to tell. Online there are indications that this might be the first printing or the first edition from 1976. On the other hand, it also sounds like the first one might have been a hardcover. I don't know, swings and roundabouts. Louise Cooper herself was born in 1950, I'm going to say 52, definitely 50s, and died suddenly in 2009. I recognised the name and thought, this writer of pulp horror, has the same name as the author who wrote fantasy, but no, they're actually the same person. Louise Cooper was apparently one of those people who was drawn to write early on. She was already writing stories in school. She didn't like school. She mostly wrote stories. I feel for her, though I was not the same. And she left school early and embarked on a career as a professional author from about age 20. She wrote a lot of different things by the sound of it. She wrote this horror type genre. She did write a lot of fantasies, specifically fantasy series, and that's where I knew her name from. She wrote the Indigo series. Apparently that wasn't her most famous one, but it was around everywhere in the 90s, 80s, 90s-ish. And it wasn't bad. I haven't reread it for a long time and I don't remember it well, but I do remember quite liking it. She has many other series as well, but she didn't really... The Time Master series apparently was a big one. And there were other ones. So aside from the Time Master universe and the Indigo universe, which is the one I know, she also did one called Chaos's Gate, which I believe I've heard mentioned as well. She wrote these amazingly pulpy stories. So this delivers on everything it promises. We start in the 70s with Marion and her boyfriend Roland. They are students, sociology, I think, and they've left university or college or whatever you want to call it in a van to spend the summer camping in Cornwall. Now, Louise Cooper herself was from Cornwall. I don't think she was born there, but she lived there most of her life. And apparently a lot of her books are very, very heavily influenced by the mythology and history of Cornwall. And in these semi-real background books, semi-real because while the scenery is definitely, and beach is definitely real, the vampire, not so much. Also attributed to Cornwall. So Mary and Roland, they rock up, and when we first meet them in this book, they're at the gates of this beautiful old mansion. It's got these old grounds with eldritch trees, and they're asking the owner if they can camp under those trees. And he's turning them away because he doesn't want anywhere on his grounds. Roland gets all grumpy and angry, and why is the perfect place? You've got so much space. We, as the readers who have already seen this cover, are aware of the fact that he is very pale. He is wearing dark Edwardian style clothes, despite it being a contemporary 1970s Cornish summer. And he won't leave the shadows and go into the sunlight. Danger music in the background. I can't sing, or I would sing it. So Roland and Marion head on down to the pub. The pub owner's got some land behind the pub between him and the beach. It actually sounds like a much nicer place for me. And they camp there. They're doing summer things on beaches and stuff, and they spend one night at the pub where the owner of this eldritch mansion invites them to a party. He actually invites Marion and Roland as along for the ride sort of thing. So they turn up to the party, and the owner of the mansion, I don't know why I found it so hysterically funny to have a vampire called Keith. I don't know why you would do that, but it is funny. I mean, Dracula, sure. I don't know, something eldritch, but Keith, really? Yeah, the vampire's called Keith. So Mary and Roland go to this party and they meet lots of people and they drink lots of stuff. And Keith cracks onto Marion pretty heavily. She goes up to the upper story with him or without him, I can't remember. And she ends up finding this weird shrine with this strange hermaphrodite image with wings. And she asks him about it, doesn't really get a good answer. He cracks onto her. She says, no, I'm with Roland. Goes home with Roland to the tent. In the middle of the night, she wakes up mysteriously unable to sleep and is drawn back to the mansion and Keith. When she gets there, the inevitable happens. There's a roll in the hay that occurs, but we learn that Marion is not very smart. What heroine in the gothic horror ever is smart, I guess? But while she was at the party earlier, when she got home, she realized she'd lost a silver ring that was very important to her. When she gets back, she says to Keith, I don't know why I came. And he says, holds up the silver ring, goes, well, this is why you came. I drew you back using this. And it's like, okay. So he cracked onto you, though he stopped when you said no. Kudos to women writers in the 70s. Cracked onto you, stole your ring, used it to black magic you back into his bed, and no alarm bells are singing. 70s pulp horror. But for all that, it is one of the better pulpy 70s type horror. Keith the Vampire, it turns out. Spoilers. From here on, spoilers. I mean, can you spoiler one of these? We all know what's going to happen while we're reading it. You're either going to love the experience or you're not. But I will say that for the pulp 60s and 70s horror that I've read, and I used to read a lot of them, I read less now, this is actually more interesting, well written, less dated, and in many ways more contemporary feeling than many of them. So if you, like me, have moved away from the genre but you want to revisit, you could do far, far worse than seek out Louise Cooper's Blood Summer. Now, some of the internet sources claim that it's one of two. It ends with an actual ending. It doesn't feel like it's got a follow-up, and the follow-up's got a very strange name, so I don't know what the internet's telling me. This isn't one that's got a lot of reviews online, and you don't have a lot of people talking about it. I couldn't find, personally, a lot of people talking about Louise Cooper's pulp horror. There's maybe dedicated sites where they are, but it's a bit niche. I couldn't find anything very much. So, where were we? Oh, yes, the spoilers. On to the spoiler. Well, Keith is under this incredible curse. He used to live in Nineveh. I'm not sure how to say that. Ancient city many, many years ago. He did a bad thing. He destroyed a god. The god, in fact, on his shrine at home. And he was cursed by the high priest with this incredible curse that he will be a vampire forever and he will live forever. But he isn't exactly doing that. Keith himself is the son of a local guy who owned the house he's living in and bequeathed it him. And he was born in a perfectly normal fashion. Only at some point in his life he discovers that not only is he Keith of Cornwall, the eternal vampire Keith of Cornwall. I'm sorry, that's just... Go, Louise. Okay, Keith of Cornwall, the immortal vampire, but he's only a vampire because this curse was set upon him hundreds of thousands of years ago in Nineveh for disrespecting a hermaphrodite god. It's a weird sort of cursey, modern, old thing that is explained just enough for this type of book. Not enough that you want to think about it too heavily, so I didn't. I cruised along with the story. So Marion by now is heavily in lust or one of those other things that might be love, but she's not sure, with Keith, who never feels anything, and so he can't be in love with her. He's the eternal vampire. Bad things start happening. There's a bit of nasty horror and murder and gore and blood and danger to Marion as Keith transforms into a vampire intent on drinking her blood, but she escapes. Still loves him at the end of it. Hangs out with him, is so sorry for him and his curse that she leaves a dead Roland behind, dead ex-boyfriend, a few other dead as well, and goes off to his other summer house somewhere else in England that I can't remember where, at which point he tells her he believes there is a way he can break this immortal curse, but in order to do that he has to have the name of the god was it the priest? I think it was the god, who has ensnared him in its vampiric coils. And to do that, he goes on a spirit quest, carrying her along to see the horrible, horrible end of his immortal body back in the Neva. So that he, she, or they, I'm not sure, can hear the name of this god. And they do that, and it's... okay, it's kind of suitably horrific, but let's face it, by today's modern standards, and if anyone who's read Lumley, the horrible, horrible scenes are pretty mediocre and very tame, but they're cute and they're well written, and they're 70s horror genre, which is what I wanted. So having discovered that, Keith the immortal vampire decides to put together a ritual from all his knowledge of sorcery over the years to expel the nasty god whose name he now knows and break his curse, and Marion's going to help him with that. A few more bad things happen, some strange things happen. He expels the curse, and the two main protagonists seem all set to live happily ever after, cruising off into the sunset in their amazing car, which I'd never heard of before. A car purring effortlessly on toward the Tamar. I really wish I could remember the name of that car. I've never heard of it. A Bristol. A Bristol is a luxury car that you can only be bought directly from manufacturers and orders. I'd love to know if that's a real car. It's described quite luxuriously. I love it. The writing is the better of its type. For example, a hoarse guttural yell split the silence. They swung around and saw Keith. This was an antidote to a series that I've been reading, which I was starting to get into a bit too seriously. This is not one you can take seriously. You have to enjoy it for what it is. But for what it is, schlock, pulpy, 70s horror with vampires that have got claws and are called Keith. It's fun. It's fun. If this kind of genre appeals to you, by all means read it. If you've read Louise Cooper in her more fantasy series, I think it's worth reading as well. It's not a large book and it's enjoyable. So, thank you for watching. Read good books, including pulpy 70s goodness, if that's what happens to appeal to you. Bye.